My sense was that belief system, that worship of what by all of our any standards we have are evil. I mean,
Mhm.
was was something that was deeply encoded in the blood of the people there, and I think it's been passed down. I mean, now this area that I went to is controlled mainly by the Zetas cartel, and they practice all these blood rituals and do the same sorts of sacrifices, and very often the cartel's number two or number three person is a witch, a brujo, who is someone who is,
Right.
if they're real, they've gained power by selling their soul to the devil.
Mhm.
Uh, so this stuff is deeply
Right.
embedded in the culture. And I went to the place, which is about a 6.5 hour drive south from Veracruz in the Mexican jungle, that is the center of devil worship and black magic in Mexico. And devil worship and black magic are still a big part of Mexican culture. I mean, it's not a secret either. It's in the
Mhm.
newspapers.
Is it
People.
dangerous to go there? Is it dangerous to
It's
travel?
very dangerous. I really thought it was a coin flip that I'd survive. I mean, the additional danger now is the Zetas, and I have who are an absolutely murderous cartel. I mean, they kill people on camera and show it on live stream it. Uh, uh, I drove through an intersection where not too long before they dumped 40 headless bodies in the middle of the street to make the point that we are in charge here.
Mhm.
So that atmosphere. So I really felt, in addition to the Brujeria, the black magic, which is really rooted in devil worship, that
Mhm.
you have this totally murderous cartel that is also practices devil worship. So yes, I felt at risk literally every moment I was there.
So the Brujeria, do they have a special day each year in addition to just their normal practice where it's, kind of like we have our feast days in the Catholic faith? Do they have days where, and because I think, don't they also kind of combine a little bit? If I'm not mistaken, almost similar to what we see in like other cultures where they take the Catholic faith and they take the saints. And I know like Santa Moreta is a good example of that, of they take things that are traditionally Christian, traditionally Catholic, and it's almost like they twist it and they make it they bring in the other things with it.
Well, there is certainly some of that, and certainly in the Santa Muerte cult,
Mhm.
but in the Brujeria culture of that part of Mexico, which is in other parts too, but that is the center of it. It's this ancient
Mhm.
reality. I mean, well, I'll just tell you the story. I mean, I get there,
Mhm.
and I know, I'm arrived the day before what is the big day, which is it's the first Friday of March. First Friday of each March is the day that they celebrate the devil. Supposedly, all the demons are come loose, and because the devil chose that day to celebrate his fall from heaven, his break with God, his separation. Um, and so you can. That's the best time, they say, to ask Satan for favors. If you offer up your soul, you can ask for a lot if you do it on that day. So there's a lot of people there to do it. Anyway, I get there, and I was really this. I mean, it did feel like guided. I mean, the fact that I found my way to some really good, reliable people in the midst of this, who basically told me, this is all show now. This is, the real brujos have been dead for years. I said, what? I mean, this is like a major event in Mexico, and uh, you know, everybody, I mean, how can you say that when there's all these brujos here? Yeah, they aren't real. Maybe some who work for the cartels are real. They might be, but this is just show business. But the real ones, I mean, and then they told me what it was like when the real ones were there. One had died in 1968, and the other died in 1980, so it went that far back. And the one who died in 1968, people still wouldn't say his name. This was 2015 when I was there, and people were afraid to speak his name.
Mhm.
50 years after his death. So I was, was put in contact with and got to know people who had been associated with these two. One was the teacher, and one was the student. The student is the most famous witch in Mexican history, Gustavo Gonzalo Aguirre, and so he was hugely famous all over Mexico. But his teacher, who was the more powerful one, no, he was completely obscure because he didn't want attention or money. Gonzalo had become one of the richest men in Mexico, owned, many pharmacies and supermarkets, and his family was, so.
What did the teacher want? If he didn't want to be known, he wanted power.
Just wanted power.
Okay.
He wanted, his friend and student, Dagberto, told me, and he was making the point, the two sides would argue over who had the more noble, the people with the first one would say that, but his only goal was power. He wasn't doing it to get rich. He just wanted, as Dagberto said, he just wanted to see what he could be capable of. Mm-hmm. But Gonzalo wanted to be wealthy and became very wealthy. And his family would say, yeah, he wasn't in it. He wasn't in it for power like Don Manuel. He was in it, for money, which, you can understand that.
Okay.
I heard a lot from people about what it had been like when they were still alive. And someone offered to take me to the cave at the top of White Monkey Mountain, when they call it Cava de Diablo. And this is where the first one made his original deal with the devil and got his powers. So it's quite a hike to get to this place. Absolutely beautiful setting. Laguna Encantado, it's called, around it. And I arrived.
So was anyone able to just join in the festival and walk up there? There was no restrictions?
I could just walk up. There were federales. I didn't know that when I first went in, but I didn't know I was walking in. This is the site where the Zetas were going to hold their Black Mass that night. So I arrived just to see, to realize what it was. There were these giant sheets covered with images of Satan. Actually, they're Gustave Dor's woodcuts from years ago, and centuries ago, actually. And but they just stop you in your tracks. It was enormous. They were probably 20 feet tall, and there were stacks and stacks and stacks of animals, goats, chickens, pigs, various animals that were going to be sacrificed during the ceremony. And then, someone said, well, that's not all they're going to sacrifice, but it won't be until midnight. It was going to start at midnight. So anyway, the federales were there. I climbed to the top of White Monkey Mountain, and I went into the cave, and I don't know what happened to me exactly there, but I just felt like I was in some alternate universe. And there was this weird whistling sound inside, and a clacking, and it was just I felt compelled to walk to the end of it. And when I got there, there was an image of the hummingbird wizard at the very end with candles around it at the end of the wall. So anyway, my friend Michelle Gomez, who was my translator and companion and translator on this trip, we met the head of the federales there, and she was convinced they were going to kill us. Of course, she was convinced virtually everybody we met was going to kill us, but I could tell right immediately that he was, that was not him. And he said, well, you've really got an experience to come and see this, but, you don't want to be here after dark because we won't be here. And, you'll be joining those goats and chickens if you are here. So I elected not to stick around at their Black Mass, although I did go to a Black Mass, but it was sort of a showbiz mass kind of, but the main thing I did was that night was find this woman, Isabel Aguirre, who's probably the most famous curandera healer in Mexico. She's so famous that, the Mexico City newspapers seek her out in this little village for her opinion on anything. The town maintains one tiny little airstrip so people in private jets can land which they do daily for people to pay to meet with her. But she is the daughter of Gonzalo Aguirre, who still is the most famous witch in Mexican history. And
so does she practice? But does she practice the way her grandfather practiced, or does she?
No. Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay, sorry.
So she agrees to meet with me and speak to me, which I felt this is the whole point. This is why I came here. So I walk into her house, and the living room is literally crammed with images of Christ's Passion, and mostly of Christ being crucified. And I mean, there were like dozens of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what to think. But she's the daughter of the famous witch in Mexico, who called himself the devil's representative on earth. And so eventually, she told me, actually, I didn't have to pull that hard. She looked me over, thought about it, and decided, okay, I'm going to tell you. And so she told me the story with her father, which was that, yes, he had become this powerful witch by selling his soul to the devil. She told me the circumstances under which it happened, where it happened. But his deal with the devil, she said, was that he'd given the devil his soul till he reached the age of 60. And as soon as he reached the age of 60, he decided he was going to try to save his soul. But he told his daughter and his whole family, I only have, I think it was 6 months or 3 months. I'm going to die of cerebral hemorrhage. And he named the exact number of days. So priests began to come and take confession. But the priests were so overwhelmed by what they heard that no one priest could do it. In fact, no one priest could even come back. It was just priests coming from all over Mexico, spend, a few hours with him hearing his confession. And he had so much to confess that it went on for, I know the exact number of days is in the book, but it's like 100 days or something. And then finally, on the day he had said he would die, he did die on that day of a cerebral hemorrhage. But before then, he had told her, well, long before then, he had told her, his daughter, Isabel, that I'm going to teach you what I know about plants and healing and medicinal treatment, but I'm not going to teach you anything about brujeria, because I want you to know the only way you get these powers is to sell your soul to the devil. Anybody who says otherwise is either lying or ignorant. But he said, but I want you to know that the devil is real. So so he took her to the spring where he had originally made his deal with the devil and where he renewed it every year. And the story was remarkable, but it all happened at a spring, but there was one tree, a tree that the devil would enter and that would communicate with Gonzalo each year when he gave his, renewed the pledge of his soul. So he went there. So she could feel something happen, and her father was saying words she didn't understand. And then he said, I need you to give my daughter a sign. I want her to know you're real. So she said she was standing there, and all of a sudden a leaf fluttered down off the tree and landed in her hand, and it was a perfect square. Actually, I think the first one was a perfect triangle. I mean, it was like not nature. Nature doesn't do something like this.
Right.
And so she was scared, speechless. Her father looked at her a second and then communicated with the tree again and said, I think she needs a little more. So another leaf fell down, and it was a perfect square. And she said at that moment she had no doubt. She knew for certain, and she decided that she was never going to practice brujeria, that she was going to devote herself to white magic and be a healer. Of course, I did have some suspicions at moments that maybe she tipped over the line, and I don't know what the line is really between magic and magic. It's all
magic at the end of the day. It's all evil.
But at the same time, this was a deeply Christian woman. Her daughter told me that she prayed 2 hours every morning, and went to church mass daily. So it was almost like she was trying to save her soul and her family, something. And then she showed me a picture of her father, one photograph of him she had, and I was just, it was about the most distressing look at another human being I've ever had. I mean, it was like a person from whom every single atom of joy had been driven out. There was absolute emptiness of anything remotely like joy in the man. And she knew, she said, I know what you're seeing, but at the same time, I love my father and I know he loved me. And I think he saved his soul, but I don't know.
Mhm.